I know in a documentary-style presentation, it is considered improper for the narrator to use pronouns such as I or me. But what follows is not a biography, but more of a personal quest. Therefore, I am employing first-person pronouns due to the fact that these are my thoughts and my questions. With that said, here's my opening statement. In all of my years of researching and reading about the mob, doubts have come up in my mind from time to time with respect to the question, what makes someone a rat? And this is the question I will try to answer as we move forward. In most circles, a rat is someone who is disloyal to his oath and or to his friends. And for the most part, I agree. No place has this concept been taken more seriously than in the history of organized crime, especially within the ranks of the Italian mafia. In mob circles, and probably outside of mob circles, a rat is considered the lowest of creature, one who deserves no quarter or sympathy. It is easy to admire someone like Dominic Sonny Black Napolitano. Once the information came out that Donnie Brasco was a Fed, Sonny could have easily flipped. If he had, he might be alive today, traveling the country giving speeches to university students or working as a consultant in Hollywood. But Napolitano took his oath of Omerta seriously. Perhaps he hoped he would get a pass, but either way, he was going to accept his fate and took a bullet to the back of his head. John Gotti is another example. He may have been able to make a deal and thereby decrease his time in prison. All he would have had to do is testify against his friends and the other New York families. But he never said a word. With all of his faults, John Gotti refused to become a rat. But my question is, what exactly makes a person a rat? And if I am permitted a follow-up question, and one which often bothers me, doesn't loyalty go both ways? And this perhaps may be where the waters become somewhat murky, at least in my mind. But before we go further, I need to ask the following provocative question. Suppose the year is 1999, and your child was told by two of his friends, and their names happen to be Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, that they intended the next morning to go to Columbine High School and kill as many fellow students and teachers as they could before police took them down. And should we, and by we I mean society, consider your child a rat for turning over such information to authorities? I hope there isn't a single person out there who would answer yes. But if there is, I would love to know why. But I do not want to linger here. The previous question was simply for your consideration. I want to move on to the question at hand and present what may be a possible curveball when it comes to some of those who have flipped and were left with no other choice. For example, suppose you were a made man in the mafia, a loyal soldier, and have been so for 20 years. You carry out every order handed down by your superiors. You treat your fellow soldiers and bosses with respect, and no one can say or prove otherwise. In fact, your reputation as a stand-up guy is without question. Unfortunately, a new capo or boss is appointed who doesn't care about your past. He is a bloodthirsty psychopath who kills for what he perceives as the slightest insult. Since he has taken over the job as boss, you've personally witnessed good men in your own family get whacked on his orders for no apparent reason, or the reason given leaves you scratching your head. In fact, you know with certainty that the men who have been whacked on the boss's orders didn't break a single rule. And as if to make matters worse, you find out that the last guy to get whacked was due to the fact that he was doing his job too well. And the boss became jealous, interpreting his ambition as a desire to take over the family. Knowing the crew is afraid of him and not wanting to get hit themselves, this loyal, good earner, stand-up guy is shot down without a second thought. Now what are you to think? If the boss can take him out for doing his job too well, where does that leave anyone? Where does it leave me, you ask yourself? Of course, I'm speaking here of Nicky Scarfo and Philip Leonetti. Leonetti had seen what had happened to Salvi Testa, a loyal capo in the Philadelphia mob. Before and after Testa was hit, numerous made men wondered why. Many have openly stated that Scarfo simply liked to kill. If he couldn't find a reason to whack someone, then he made up a reason in his own demented mind. And many in the Philadelphia mob began to wonder if they were next. So I ask it again, does loyalty go both ways? Wasn't this indiscriminate killing of his men, especially Salvi Testa, a sign of disloyalty on Scarfo's part? And as a result, didn't the unstable, bloodthirsty Scarfo create this atmosphere of betrayal? And if so, then doesn't he alone bear the responsibility of the consequences of his actions? Another possible example could be that of Henry Hill. Would Hill have ever considered becoming a government witness if Jimmy Burke hadn't backed him into a corner and targeted him for death? And why was Hill targeted for death? Independent sources have confirmed Hill's side of the story, that it was due to greed on the part of Jimmy Burke. After the Lufthansa heist, Jimmy wanted all the money for himself. He had already knocked off 10 men from his own crew who were involved in the robbery. Was Henry next? He thought so. What about the mob's most infamous witness for the government, Joseph Valachi? Was he not in a no-win scenario due to the fact he was in prison with the man who wanted him dead and therefore had no place to run except to the government? Vito Genovese was one of the most powerful and ruthless bosses in the history of the mafia, and he wanted Valachi dead. Why? Well, Valachi himself could never really figure that out. Genovese told others it was because Valachi was already a rat. But there isn't a shred of reputable evidence that shows Joseph Valachi had ever spoken with or offered information to local, state, or federal authorities about the inner workings of any of the 5 families or any crime venture he or anyone else was involved with prior to that time. So is this not simply a case of cause and effect? Therefore, isn't Genovese to blame, at least in part, for Valachi turning government witness? If the boss does not create an atmosphere of trust and honor, then how can anyone else? Trust, honor, respect have to be more than just words, and shouldn't the example be established at the top? Please note that these are just questions, and your thoughtful comments are appreciated. So allow me to give a recap. The first examples given, I'm sure everyone would agree, are the honorable ones. Men like Sonny Black and John Gotti. Others could be included, like Benjamin Lefty Ruggiero and Louis Lepke Burkhalter, and a host of others who could have turned to save their own skin, but didn't. And the second group, well, I understand that that's up for debate. Which brings us back to the original question. Just what is a rat, and to whom does the term properly apply? I know others may disagree with my assessment and my definition, but here it goes anyway. Suppose a made man or associate gets caught in a criminal activity and could face prison time. To save his own hide, he flips and turns government witness. Now, not a single friend, boss, or associate has turned on him. He just has no regard for friendship and the life he had chosen. His loyalty was conditional, and the condition was a deep-seated narcissism. I will be loyal as long as it benefits me. So my definition of a rat would be this: someone who is willing to sell out his loyal and faithful friends just so he doesn't have to do jail time or so he can get a reduced sentence. Was this not Sammy the Bull Gravano and former Bonanno boss Joe Massino and countless others in recent history? But it is the middle group, of course, which I want to discuss. And the question could be posed this way: can a boss break the rules and have someone killed who didn't break the rules? And at what point, if you were that loyal soldier, would you say, hey, wait a minute, doesn't loyalty go both ways?